Hey there, welcome to this lecture. Now we're going to talk about the process of analysis. And I concluded the previous lecture on this topic of analysis, and I said that when a document is being indexed into Elasticsearch, right? When we send a document into Elasticsearch, Elasticsearch goes through a process of running this analysis step, okay? And what this step is going to do, the objective of this step is to convert or transform the document into an inverted index and store it into a shard. Okay, so this inverted index gets put into a shards segment. So this process of analysis is the key in indexing documents. And not only during indexing, but also during query time when we retrieve or read the documents back, the analysis step is, it takes a big piece of that process. So let's go over what this analysis step is all about. Here are two documents. You can consider these two documents. The first one has this sentence that says, "The thin lifeguard was swimming in the lake." And the second document, number 2, it says, "Swimmers race with the skinny lifeguard in lake." Okay, now these are two funny sentences that I came up with, but I made them up for a particular reason, right, to prove a point. And that is that these need to be put through the analysis process. If we were indexing these two sentences, we'd need to get rid of unnecessary information so that we can get to the most important pieces of both of these documents, and only those pieces would be indexed. So if we were to convert these documents into an inverted index, it would look like what you see here on the right. Okay, we got the tokens, and these are just basically words just splitting on the white space. When you split words on the white space, it comes up with these terms or tokens. And you can list them in alphabetical order. As you can see, the two capital words, swimmers and the capital word the, these two are on the top, and then we start to, list all of the lowercase words starting from from A to Z, alphabetical order. And it shows here on the right where the particular word exists in both of the documents. So swimmers exists in document 2. The word the with the capital T exists in document 1. And the word in exists in document 1 and 2, and so on. You can look through this yourself. But the process of analysis is used to convert the text into these tokens and terms, but also to reduce it to the bare minimum, to the essentials that are needed for search. And that typically means we need to remove stop words, right? We need to remove stop words. And what are these stop words? Words that are not really important. For example, the word the, right? It's used in the English language so much that you might as well just not even consider it in terms of searching. So remove stop words such as the and. And then lowercasing, we want our searches to be case insensitive, meaning that if we search for a word with a capital letter, it should match a word that is sitting in the search engine that is lowercase or capital, right? So case insensitivity is important. So it's best to not only remove the stop word, but also lowercase all of the data that we're trying to index. Then stemming comes into play. So we want to stem these words, meaning get to the root of the word. So for example, we have swimmers and swimming. Both of them basically, they mean the same thing. So we want to get to the root of the word, which is just swim. So we should just only index the word swim. So stemming needs to happen. And then synonyms. Synonyms, for example, the word thin right here. Thin is the same thing as skinny. So we can run this synonyms process as part of the analysis process to only index one of them, and they would mean the same thing. So we're able to break all of this text into its bare minimum essentials and only index that. Not only does it take less space, but it's also much faster for searching. And notice that these are all alphabetically sorted. So if we were to make a new chart of this after applying all of these processes, these are steps that take place inside of analysis. Once we apply these steps to both of these documents, the chart would look a lot smaller, and I'll show you that in just a second. But basically, this analysis step has two major pieces. First piece you can see it happen on the right here, is tokenization. We're tokenizing the words. We're splitting them on the white space for both of the documents, okay? And then the next big step is these things that are going on here, okay? And this is called filters. I'm just going to write that down here, filter. Right, that's what these guys are. These are filters, and what we're doing on the right here with splitting the words, that's called tokenization. So to summarize, the analysis step has two parts. I'm just going to write this. Let me change the text here, the color of the text. It goes through this process called an analyzer. Okay, and this is the guy that does all of the analysis in Elasticsearch. So let me just draw a box around this. And the analyzer has two parts, right? And I just explained to you the first part is tokenization. So it has a tokenizer, okay? And sorry for my handwriting, the tokenizer. And the second step is filter, okay? And when the text goes into this analyzer, let's say we are indexing, right? We are indexing the document. When text goes into this analyzer, it gets first tokenized. So this happens first, tokenization. And then step 2 is filtering, okay? And after the filtering takes place, the tokens that come out are the ones that make it into the inverted index, okay? So this is text going in and going through this analyzer, the tokenizers get applied, and then the filtering happens, and then it makes its way into the inverted index. So this is the indexing step. What about the querying step, right? I mentioned that the analyzer takes place not only during indexing, but also during searching, right? During querying, when we're retrieving the documents. So that's going to be a similar situation. Let me change this to querying now, and I'll show you exactly what happens. We'll go over a quick example of what it means to search. So during the searching step, the text that goes in is typically going to be part of a query. So if we have a match query, and you'll look at these pretty soon, a match query, and let's say we're matching for the terms the, thin. It's going to go through this analyzer step, and the thing that's going to come out, right, the result for this query is just going to be thin. We get rid of the that's a stop word, and this term is going to be found, okay? Basically, all of the documents that contain the word thin are going to be returned as part of this search result, okay? So that's the basic idea. During indexing as well as searching, this analyzer takes place, and we can configure this analyzer on the fields, and we'll see what that means in the next lesson. I'm gonna show you how to configure an analyzer for a particular field. And the analyzer has two steps: tokenization and filtering. Again, tokenization is splitting the words like we're doing here, and the filtering is conducting all of these steps, removing stop words, lowercasing, stemming, and synonyms. So let me show you how the document, or how the inverted index will look after these filter steps that are part of the analyzer are applied to both of these sentences, how the inverted index is going to look. So here we are. I refreshed the screen with this new inverted index on the right, and notice that we removed the stop words. Okay, so the words like the, you won't see that here in this list anymore. We lowercased everything, so you won't see any capitals here either. And then stemming, the word swimmers and swimming has now been changed to swim. And then synonyms, we're only storing the word thin, which would any word that means thin or skinny is going to be using this thin synonym, okay? So this is what gets stored into the inverted index, right? What you see here on the right. Not only just where, which document the data is in, it also stores something called the position, the offset of where exactly this particular term, this tokenized term, exists within this textual data, right? You can actually count, and I'll show you in the actual index when we look at a real life example using Elasticsearch. But basically, there's just a little bit more detail as to what position these words exist in the given document. So like I said, the analyzer is the guy that does most of the work in terms of changing this text into an inverted index. And this takes place during the indexing step as well as the querying or reading step. And the analyzer has two parts. It has the tokenizer, and I'm repeating this because it's very important. So sorry for the repetition, but I think it's important to go over again. The tokenizer and the filter. And Elasticsearch has some pre-built analyzers that you can apply to your fields. Along with pre-built analyzers, there's also you can create your own custom analyzers using pre-built filters. But you might be pondering at this point that this analyzer thing, where exactly is this applied? And the simple answer is it's applied on the document. Every document that is indexed into Elasticsearch would go through some kind of analysis process. So we specify the field that needs to be analyzed. So notice that funny sentence here in this document. This is consider this as a tweet by this person named Steve Honor. Notice his username. These are different fields, and one of the fields that he has is called tweeted. And that field has that funny looking sentence that I came up with earlier. The thin lifeguard was swimming in the lake. So if this document is sent to Elasticsearch for indexing, the field called tweeted, right? This tweeted field is going to go through the analysis process if we have enabled an analyzer on this given field, okay? So analyzers are applied to specific fields on the, in the index. So if this is being stored in Elasticsearch after the analysis process, we better make sure that during query time, the same analyzer is used. Okay, so not only during indexing, but during query time, for example, this particular document, the tweeted field, notice the word swimming in here, right? The swimming word is going to be trimmed. The stems are going to be removed, and only the root of the word, that is swim, is going to be stored in the index. So if we search for the word swimming, this analyzer better be applied to our search criteria also. So our search criteria that is called swimming is going to be stemmed, and only the root is going to be searched, which is swim. So not only during index time of this field should we be applying the analyzer, also during query time, the analyzer should be applied. So that's a configuration setting that needs to be made on the actual index. Okay, now so far we haven't defined any indices specifically, right? We haven't defined an index. We've only just been throwing documents into Elasticsearch, and we say, yeah, this is an employee, throw it into an employee. This is a vehicle, throw it into the vehicle index, without really without any structure of the actual index in advance. So it's about time we define a structure of our data. So if we have vehicle documents, we want to first design a structure for the vehicle's index. Before we load any document into it, we want to specify the structure, come up with it, define the different analyzers on the different fields. Notice remember when I spoke about mappings and settings, those configuration settings should be designed first before we put any data into the index. Okay, so up to this point, we've just sort of been throwing data into Elasticsearch. We're going to fix that process, right? That's not how you work with Elasticsearch in production. We want to make sure we know exactly the structure of our index beforehand, and that needs to be designed. So we'll specify these analyzers on the certain fields, and we'll specify the mappings as well as the settings. All right, so we covered a lot of ground in this lecture. Another one of those lectures that you might want to review later on. These are fundamental building blocks for Elasticsearch, right? You're going to learn a lot of query syntax and aggregations, analytics, but these core, 4 or 5 lectures that I've went over so far are fundamental building blocks of Elasticsearch that you need to understand. Otherwise, you won't be able to use it effectively. Okay, so if you need to rewatch this lecture again, go right ahead. There's a lot of information here for you to absorb. So take your time with this before moving on. All right. So in the next lecture, we're going to move into the topic of creating an index first, right? Before putting any documents into it, we're going to create the index, specify the settings, specify the mappings, and then apply the analyzers on the specific fields, such as this field tweeted, so that the proper tokenizing and the proper analysis could be done on the given fields, not only during indexing but also during searching. Okay, so let's wrap it up here. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next lecture.